last and final, or final and last, leadership spotlight session of Denver Startup Week held here at Basecamp, launched by Chase. We started off on Monday with a panel of craft brewers with a first leadership spotlight session. So I think it is only appropriate that we're bookending the week here with a panel of craft food producers, restaurateurs, purveyors, and really community builders around food. So I'm excited to sit down and talk with some of these folks, new friends and old friends. And but before we do, since this is the last session, who's had a chance to attend any of the programming here at Basecamp throughout the week? Leadership spotlights, have you been able to, favorites, one or two favorites? Which ones have you liked? Brad Feld and Friends, that was good. All right, but Denver Startup Week is only made possible through the sponsorship and support from the 4 title sponsors, which include the Downtown Denver Partnership, Colorado Technology Association, Comcast, and of course Chase, who's allowed Basecamp to happen. Over the course of the week here, we've had probably, 40 panels and programs and keynote addresses. We had a startup farmers market on the patio on Monday. This afternoon, we're ending the week with a ping pong tournament. There was a job fair here last night that was just totally blowing up. So this has been a great hub. Thanks for everybody who's been here during the week to be a part of it. So without further ado, I'm Chuck Sullivan with Something Independent, and it's my honor to then allow each of these fine folks to introduce themselves and share a little bit about who they are and why they're here.
So I'm Kyle Zeppelin from Zeppelin Development, and we have the Source and Taxi as our home base, and do a variety of project types. Food and beverages are obviously a major way to draw a community, and is people get pretty excited about eating and drinking regardless of what demographic area you're from. So it's really a unifying force as far as creating communities and doing really interesting things and finding ways to push the envelope in that area.
Rami?
My name is Rami Rossello. I own Comida. I started with a food truck, a hot pink taco truck in Boulder County, and then had an opportunity to grow that into a brick and mortar in a small neighborhood in Longmont called Prospect that I had lived in. And about 3 weeks into owning that, which was opened in February of 2012, Kyle, actually, and his wife, Andra, came to dinner. I didn't know them. And sent me an email afterwards asking if potentially I wanted to be a part of a new project that they were doing, which is The Source at 33rd and Brighton. And so that opened about a year and some after that. We've been open for a year ago, August. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Nice.
Pete? Yeah, my name is Pete Turner. Is this on, by the way? I don't even know. President, founder and president of Illegal Pete's in Denver and Boulder. We opened the first restaurant. It's been 19 years, August 15th, and we have 2 restaurants in Boulder, Colorado, and 3, or actually 4 now in Denver. And we're about to open Fort Collins at the end of October, another restaurant on Colfax and Race in the spring, and then we're doing our first out-of-state restaurant next year in Tucson, Arizona. And again, talking about restaurants and community in Denver, we love being a part of Boulder to start. I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, went to school in Boulder. Love the community up there and loved moving down to Denver and fortunately have had success and been able to really plug into every community that we do business in, and that has extended to even, we do a lot of work in music and comedy. We started a record label that has sprung from that, and we did a comedy festival our second year that was in August, and so we've kind of used the restaurant platform as an extension to do other things that we're passionate about in our communities. So that's intro.
Great. I think community is sort of a prevailing theme here, and throughout the week, Denver Startup Week, there's been 108 events across town and 4 different platforms or tracks, and a lot of it is technology sort of driven and themed, and a lot of community and collaboration and conversations around what's next. But I can think of a few other sort of industries than food and restaurants that are built on the foundation of community than food. So I don't know, maybe Ramey, you want to start this one off?
Sure. Before I owned Comida, when I was 28, I started a group of pizzerias called Proto's Pizza. At the time, I had a partner named Pam Proto, and we started at every pizzeria that we started in a small little neighborhood. The first one was actually in the neighborhood that we lived in, and we really wanted to be a part of that community. It was Longmont, which is, at the time, especially in 1999, felt a little bit like a cow town, and maybe still is in some ways. But we from the first day really did everything that we could to make friends with people, and when I started the food truck, that was the only way that we actually stayed in business, obviously, was making friends, because for the whole first year that we had it, we were illegal in Boulder County. I thought it was going to be a great idea and that everybody was going to be really excited about having food trucks in downtown Boulder, and then one of the guys that I'd known for a long time that owned a restaurant on Pearl Street called the cops on the truck, and so that obviously added a different flavor to the experience of going downtown when the cops said you can never come back here again. So community obviously means a lot of different things, and we really had to figure our way through making community while we made friends and built a business.
Absolutely. Our main approach, different projects are kind of their own animal, but with the source, it was just really important to have the right mix of people and some complementary relationships and some complementary uses that were happening throughout that project, that it wasn't just all restaurants, that there was market functions and there was a logical kind of flow of different experiences that could happen through that project. So, I think, it's kind of a subjective thing, but just a more curated mix of people in there. I think you could kind of, it's not just food-oriented projects that require that, but, we didn't just hang a real estate sign out front and populate the project that way. It was more just all based on these relationships, and really it's so ingrained in that process. It wasn't about just leasing space. It was trying to create an experience, and people like Ramey, at a really early stage, Ramey was the first person to sign a lease and see the potential for it, and in a pretty kind of rough area of town, and there were some nice bones to work with that building, but not a lot of, wasn't immediately apparent how that would work, even to us, which, you kind of have some broad principles how you're going to get there, but without knowing exactly the steps that are going to be required.
Pete, 19 years that Illegal Pete's has been in business, and how many stores did you say again?
6 stores.
6 stores, and one could kind of take a look at what you're doing and think that, it might be a faster growth opportunity there for you. Has it been very sort of a deliberate step by step, or?
Yeah, it definitely has been deliberate. And again, when we talk about Denver and startups and what has come out of Denver, sort of the fast casual segment, which we place ourselves in, although we do have a full bar and we try to slow the fast part of that down and welcome people to stay and gather and take their time and even just come in and sit for a while some of our other competitors may try to turn seats. Denver basically invented that concept. And a lot of the chains have grown huge, obviously. But I started, father co-signed a loan for me on my first location on the Hill, 600 square feet. Right now, looking back at the money, I thought it was all the money in the world. Things have changed, but I you know, I've done it all through the SBA since that point, and I've just never really, I've really kind of kept it close to the vest and have not tried to, mostly because I'm still figuring it out. But I was explaining to this group before we met that in the last 3 years, you know, I've been tightening up kind of what we do, how we do it, our systems. It's really important, and kind of trying to get clear with who we want to be and how we want to grow. You know, again, I have been doing this 19 years. I want to do it for 19 more. So it's really important also that in growth that I'm able to, or the Legal Pizza is able to be who we want to be and actually serve our communities well, you know. And so we think we figured it out, and we're actually growing. We're opening 3 stores in the next 12 months. So that is a big, big challenge and hurdle for me, and takes a lot of planning, and it's going to be a busy time. But so we are going to be sort of ramping up the growth. Again, we feel that if we can be, I find myself, and this is a panel on food, but I find myself when I talk about Illegal Pete's and what's important to us, it is the community. It starts with how you treat your employees, obviously, and then your customers, right? And that touches on the food you serve them. I mean, we've been doing all natural meats forever. I'm probably not the best at telling people about that, but again, so if we can grow it a certain way to where we can maintain our principles and in every community. When I was just going to touch briefly, like we started on the hill, went to Boulder, downtown Pearl Street, which again was another like core community, a walking community, downtown Denver, which was really walkable and sort of a place that we wanted to be a part of. And then, you know, Denver University. I kind of strayed by going out in the suburbs because I grew up in Littleton. And that really, I found out that that's not who we are and who we want to be. I mean, they are communities, but they're less sort of dense and I don't know, maybe less connection between people. And I'm not trying to, but anyway, so we stumbled there, and now we're kind of back to these neighborhoods and these communities that we feel like we can be a really integral part of, and we truly believe that. It's not just about providing food and drink, but it's a little bit more. What else can we do to support community? I don't know.
Kyle, with taxi development, who's familiar with taxi development? And now the source, which probably even more people might be familiar with. You and your development team have gone into urban neighborhoods in within the city of Denver that have just been sort of forgotten, and now it's becoming hot. But give us a little backstory on sort of what that road's been like. How long? Where did it start, and what was that vision? Because now you're sort of really creating a community. Whereas Pete, you kind of coming to Denver and the Pearl Street, you moved into some places where there was people and things like that. And Kyle, you sort of building a place where build it and they will come.
Well, I mean, I think, we're in Rhino, which is now a household name, but only probably within the last 2 or 3 years.
Or months.
So, I think the goal with a place like that, and it's a unique model because I got involved in a family business, and there was a lot of things that were working about it, but there were some things that weren't working as well. The big ideas were working really well. The execution of the projects, there was some room for improvement. So I think that's probably where I've been most active and tried to get them all the way there. But it's really placemaking. You go into a place, there isn't really, there's a underlying culture. It's in an early emerging stage of development, which is really an opportunity that works really well for us. I mean, I think what we're used to is, being told, that this is impossible, I can't see it, and then those same people, once you get it built and fully functional, which never really stops, but then those same people will see it. There's just certain people that aren't visual in that way, that you just have to have some confidence in your convictions that you're going to see things through, and there's some core ideas that you're basically going to stand up for. So that's a big part of it, but really just creating a place, building on a culture, and then finding ways to continue to stir it up because you get projects launched. And I think probably one of the most underrated part of a project is, you know, all the glory happens. You get it, you know, break ground. You have this really unique design. You open the project, so that's a big moment. And then once you get it launched, it's just, that's when the real work begins. I mean, I have some young kids, so I guess there's lots of like, you know, pregnancy references. But, you know, once you, that's kind of like the, you know, a formative stage. You hopefully want to get, you know, the development part as right as possible. But then once the project's launched, then, you know, the real work really starts as far as cultivating it, stirring it up, trying to find ways to make it better. And there's so many opportunities there to just continue to build it.
I have a question. So Comida, who's been to Comida? Awesome. It's wonderful. It's at the source. So Ramey, sort of two parts. One, what were your thoughts when you were going to turn that pink food truck into a brick and mortar location? And two, what was the process like working with Kyle? Like, we want to hear it all. Like with the source and yeah.
Well, when I started the truck, I started as a truck because I just didn't have enough money to, I didn't think, start a restaurant. My first restaurant I opened was when I opened Proto's. We only spent $60,000 to do it. We had $5,000 in the bank on the day that we opened, so we were either going to make it for like 2 weeks or forever. I mean, those were sort of the only two options. So with the truck, it ended up costing twice that to actually do the truck. And raising money at that point in time was pretty difficult. It was 2010, and people just weren't, they were like, a food truck, what are you talking about? And then I realized that they were all right because the city wouldn't even give me a license to do it, and I'd already bought the truck. So making it into a restaurant ended up being a whole lot easier because we'd been rolling around and making friends for like a year and a half. And there was the opportunity came up in Longmont, this space that I was familiar with because I'd lived in the neighborhood, and the people wanted to sell it to me for $80,000, and I didn't have $80,000. I was barely making a living selling tacos with the truck. I was paying my bills and my employees, but there wasn't much left over. So I said no thanks. And like a month later, the guy that owned the space called and said, I have it. It's available. You can just sign a lease. It's yours for free. There's dishes. There's booze on the shelves. Just sign a lease and make it work.
That is a good negotiating tactic.
And I mean, I'm
have no money, say no, and wait for them to come back.
I'm blonde, but I know a good deal when it's presented. So I took about 10 minutes, and I called him back, and I said, yeah, I'll figure that out. That sounds great. And he's ended up being not a business partner, but somebody that has been 100% supportive and actually helped and invested money for when I did the Source deal. So
did Kyle do that same deal for you?
No. So that was what opening the first restaurant was like, and turning it. You know, and the rest was really easy. You know, it was the menu, all of that stuff. None of that. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't reinventing the wheel. So then with Kyle, the opportunity, I said no right away because I was 3 weeks into owning a new restaurant, and that seemed like a lot. But we built a relationship. I mean, we literally just started getting to know each other, and went to San Francisco. He and Andra, his wife, and my friend Tom, who was my landlord, is my landlord in Longmont, and just took a trip and looked at all of these different spots and looked at what community looked like and how you would make something that looked like the Source. Maybe. I still had no idea. My dad saw the building and thought I was nuts. And then I would say after the first 6 months, like when I signed the lease, I think every day for the next 6 months, I would wake up and think, what have I done, and how do I get out of it? So I didn't get out of it because I pressed forward, and and I think we figured things out along the way, and you figure out Kyle's a really strong personality, I'm a really strong personality, and we figured out how those two things work well together in the building. And it's such a great opportunity for community in that building. And some people in some people get it and some people don't. And I wake up every day and I'm excited about it, and it works. So I think it's been a really great project. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. So I don't know. It's busy.
Kyle, your take?
Right.
Is it
I think with any project you look back on, and at least ambitious one, is there's just moments where you're going to have doubt,
It's hard.
and hopefully not forget about everything that led up to that point. So you're just, I think you want to be able to challenge yourself and ask all those hard questions, and that ends up improving the outcome. But yeah, there's definitely moments in there when you're trying to do something new that's somewhat unprecedented. I mean, the things that we fall back on are really just, travel a little bit, not have to reinvent the wheel, and we're always trying to make new mistakes, not the same ones. So figure out, just take inventory of what everybody's doing, not just locally but nationally, internationally, and try and figure out how to apply some of those lessons, and by the time you apply it to a unique context, you have something that's original, but the individual elements aren't all totally unique or unprecedented.
Pete, do you have any I'm out moments?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, this conversation. I was thinking, like, you often, in these projects, you're kind of like, you do reach a point where you're like, what the hell am I doing? And usually for me, for instance, I'm reaching that on Fort Collins because it's the biggest project we've done. And I'm always super confident. Like, I feel like I know, I think a lot. I do a lot of work to figure out, hey, this is a good market for us. I mean, I really believe that now, after I'd made a mistake. And again, try not to make the same mistake again. And mistakes are good because you do learn. Hopefully they don't put you out of business, but you hear about the people that fail and then go on to do great things. But I always find myself in that position, and I'm there now with Fort Collins. But I've got partners and employees that kind of say, no, we're on track, man. Just, and it does push you to I think, work a little bit harder and just make sure you've got everything buttoned up as much as you can. I mean, so I think that's my take on that. And to tie in a little bit to, it's not nearly as extreme as what they did at the Source, which it was, Rhino now is becoming a household name, and it was very gutsy, but right on the money. I mean, Denver is booming, and those areas are so cool, and what a cool building. But Fort Collins, we're kind of on the edge of Old Town, so we're not in the heart of it. We opened South Broadway, and we're kind of on the edge. I thought we were 3 years out, but luckily we sort of opened and anchored and kind of stretched that Baker Street, Pearl Street Mall. We were on the east end of the mall, and in the late 90s, it was a ghost town, man. It was and where we were was failed business after failed business, and I think that's how we were able to actually get in there and get the actual lease isn't great, that one, but another lesson learned. But anyway, it's just touching on that, kind of seeing areas that are growing, and we are very fortunate, I think, in Denver, Boulder, just Colorado right now, to have good economy and a great place to live, and people want to come here, and you see all the young creatives and really interesting people coming here to add to that. That's what I would say. But yeah, I have those moments all the time, and I'm having one right now.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, I'll be all right.
Well, you got a lot of support here in the room
Yeah.
if you need to be talked off the ledge. Talked about people and your customers and, well, really your community, I guess. What is it about Denver and Colorado right now, and for the food community? What about the consumers? What makes it special?
I think I think people really love the opportunity to go out and eat good food and be served in a way that makes them, I don't know, sometimes it's just about let's find something to eat, but I know for me, I don't have the opportunity to go out all that often because I'm often working, but I get really excited about good food, and there is a great opportunity to work with, we much like what Pete was saying, we spend a lot on our proteins and work with small farmers, and this summer we had a local, this urban farmer just right around the corner from us that we got all of our tomatoes from all summer long for the Denver Comida, I think for people to go out and actually have a good meal and not have to spend. I mean, sometimes it's exciting to spend $400 on a meal. That's not something people do on a regular basis, I would imagine. And so certainly for our price point, which we're definitely a different concept in terms of not being fast casual, but you can walk in and, I mean, unless it's really, really busy, you can walk out in 40 minutes. If it's really busy, you might wait a little bit longer, but.
I think that point of like sort of this casual environment, it used to be the steak dinners for business and golf outings, and here this whole startup community that's been, I think 10,000 people have participated in programming throughout this week, and and in that startup community, they're going to Illegal Pete's and they're going to Comida, and they're not necessarily doing it the way traditional business used to be done. And so I think that integration of folks from other industries who they want to be in Rhino and off-scene at places like taxi and industry and have opportunities to go to Comida. They want to live in Baker and be able to go down to Illegal Pete's and get a burrito and actually maybe hear some music in a band. So, I think that is so evident here, and you guys are building some awesome concepts that.
I'd like to add one thing that's really neat. I mean, you talk about going to San Francisco, and was ferry building or yeah. So again, a lot of what you see in San Francisco or the traditional like hotspots, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, is happening here, and you've got a lot of opportunity and a lot of people moving from those areas to come here because there are a lot of, again, I would say the economy. I mean, there are people that it is fortunate that people are doing maybe well here to buy our food, and I think it was 60 restaurants open last year or something like that. I mean, it's amazing and incredible stuff. So I think there's a lot of really creative people here, and again, you had said that you led off this week with a panel on craft beer. I mean, again, Colorado has been really pioneering in that. Again, craft coffee. I mean, there's all these like really, really entrepreneurial and really great industries that pop up here. Even like Icelandic skis and all these ski companies. I mean, I feel like the restaurant industry is just another kind of expression of that creativity. And yeah, people do want to. I think people want more. Personally, at least my customer, from their dining experience, if I can provide a little bit more than just the food. I mean, do it in a different way with a little bit of flair and I don't know. There's just so many opportunities now. And my mind is blown, actually. Being born and raised in Denver, just what's happening here and in Boulder. It's really neat to see. So,
I mean, I would add it really is a kind of more casual, approachable culture. A lot of the pretenses that you see in other major markets are kind of melted away. Even Acorn, which is the other restaurant at the Source, we've had conversations and they said, we can't do dry aged meat because, we want to basically provide something that people don't have to just wait till anniversaries and birthdays to come to. It's just, and that's more closer to fine dining, but still, just trying to keep it really approachable and fun, use good ingredients when there's an opportunity to do that, and strip some of the pretenses away where it's, aligns more with the culture of Denver and trying to fly over people's heads in Denver. It's just, just right now, fine dining is not a great area of the market, I think, particularly so in Denver. So the more kind of approachable, a little more democratic, some of these like social structures that you see in other places are not as important.
Is that approach just also simply who each of you are? Like, are you building towards something that, this is the market now? Or is this just where you want to be?
I mean, everything I do is, it's personal. So, I guess sometimes that translates, probably sometimes it doesn't. But, it's just, you have this idea if you do things that are socially relevant, that are kind of from the heart that you relate to, that that's kind of what you're good at, and those are the things that are have worked in business, and when you get outside that, it tends to not work. I mean, we're not owning dry cleaners or, I think it's all basically working in areas that it's personal and things that we're relating to. I mean, I'm probably speaking for you, but certainly, everything that we work on is personal and trying to contribute in the ways that we can.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely personal for me as well. I don't have partners per se in what I do at this point in time, and I'm not a person that thinks super far in advance. I mean, I'm working on a third location in Boulder because that's where my home is. But it's not my goal in this with Comida to have 7 or 10. But I'm also not closed to that opportunity. I feel like I wake up each day and take it as it comes, and all kinds of things are presented to me, and I just try to say yes, like I did the first time when the first great opportunity really came. Yeah, and every day that I show up and work with the folks that are at Comida, I mean, I try to make a place where I personally want to show up and spend time. If I'm showing up and spending time with a bunch of douchebags, that's a bummer. Mm-hmm. So I don't.
Yeah, we have a no asshole rule.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
For
you
sure.
know, like, and it's only my fault if that's in fact what I show up and get to spend my day with. So I try to make a place where I want to actually spend the whole day, or night, or both.
And I would say, for me, it's extremely personal. And again, as you said, maybe not dry cleaners or whatever, although the dry cleaner I go to is very personable. But
Who is it?
and it's not very often, McMahon's. But yeah, I mean, so I started my business, I was 23. My first hire, one of the first 5 hires. My first hire is still with us, but one of the first 5 was my best man, my very good friends. I mean, so this has been my family all along. So in a couple different ways. I mean, not just the business itself and the food, although that's incredibly important because, again, that's an extension of what you believe in and treating people right and service and atmosphere. I mean, if you need to continually improve your food and what you're putting out there, I mean, that is part of your service. That's who you are. But also, again, so Ramey talking about, thinking ahead or whatever, and we're on this path of 3 new restaurants, and I employ 160 people. So a lot of what we're doing now is thinking about, okay, are we providing the best ingredients that we can do right now with, again, certainly in the proteins, but yeah, but also how do we, again, we talk about community, but how do you take care of your people? So it's intensely personal, and we're right now about to be launching, we've done a wage benchmarking, and we want to be, because you're hearing a lot, it's headline news now, minimum wage or whatever, and just living wage and this kind of thing. So we're working on improving or launching an initiative to get basically all of our employees from new hires up to living wage and et cetera. So from that, it's very personal too, and I believe in that. Also, I just want to add one more thing. I mean, we've been doing a lot with local music. We started a record label called Greater Than Collective, where we're local bands, and that's something very, very personal with me and a bunch of my coworkers. Helping them put out records and get on tour and whatnot. We worked with 3 local comedians called the Grolics, and that's who we did the comedy festival with. So yeah, I mean, it's intensely personal. Those are really personal passions of mine. So. And
you've got an awesome program that is still in place today, right? For touring musicians.
Starving artists. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we've been doing that kind of informally for a while. We formalized that in 2009, where any national or international band can get in touch with us, and when they come into town, we feed them. And basically, we just ask that, hey, everybody's social networks now, and those kind of 18 to 35-year-olds is our core demographic. So just ask that you tell your fans, hey, Legal Pizza's great. So a couple things there. I mean, it's the right thing to do, and we were doing that to musicians coming through anyway, but formalizing it a little more. We also think that when we move to Tucson, we reach out. We've fed over 2,000 bands. We've got a map of, we've had bands from Iceland, and it's really cool. But when we go to, say, a Portland or a Tucson, we pull up those bands and say, hey, do you want to work there? Do you want to tell all your friends? Do you want to play the opening? I mean, so we think there may be a benefit as we grow and expand our footprint, but it's also just something we believe in, and it's really fun. So, yeah.
Is Colorado's reputation sort of on this national sort of food map and culture community thing, is it in a different place today than it was a few years ago?
I mean, I would say that it's continuing to improve. It's you know, the beer culture here and the opportunity to be able to kind of continue to build on that, use ingredients that are unique to Colorado, seasonal, and you know, that creates a platform for food, and there's a huge opportunity really there to stand out nationally. I think there's probably too many examples where, you know, people are doing things in Colorado under the pretense of, you know, just people not getting outside Colorado and not knowing what else is out there. I mean, there's plenty of room to continue to improve on it. I mean, it's come a long ways, I think, just in the last couple years. But yeah, just trying to, you know, I think you're seeing a new generation of people doing more original things, and you know, one of the most exciting things happening right now is just these little neighborhood bistros that are springing up to the wind, and the Plymouth, places like that, you know, restaurant-wise, that, you know, just more one-off from the heart type stuff, and really valuing all the ingredients. Plus, you know, it's kind of ground zero for some of the groups, you know, with Snooze and The Kitchen and some of the better groups in the country. I think, you know, what Ramey's doing and just the consistency there and building a culture around it, and what Pete's doing is unique. So, I mean, you have some examples, but, you know, I think when you compare it on the national stage, there's still some room for improvement and to keep pushing ourselves. So I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, I don't know. Ramey, you nodded your head a little bit when I brought up the question of, is Colorado perceived as a different place today, sort of chef-wise, food-wise, than maybe 3 years ago? Is there more attention from other cities, and what's going on out here?
I feel like it's definitely grown. I mean, and certainly, I mean, Boulder has changed, and since that's more my hometown. But Denver, I mean, in the last 2 years, I mean, Pete just, that statistic of 60 restaurants last year, I mean, and I feel like every single time I read Eater, every month it's like, what, 10 restaurants are opening this month? I mean, and when I started Proto's in 1999, you know, people were like, what's Napolitana-style pizza? You know, and it was sort of a new, I don't know, to folks certainly in Longmont, it was sort of a new thing. And now there's 7 pizzerias, you know, in sort of the Boulder area that serve exactly that kind of pizza, all in their own unique way, though. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to do, you know, I mean, what you guys do is it's good food. I think that's what I really enjoy about, especially the places that I frequent, is I choose and want to go to places that are just that don't make it complicated. You guys don't make it complicated. It's great, and it's just, you know, it's good ingredients that make a great burrito or a great bowl.
Yeah, and just to add to that, yeah, I mean, all the number of restaurants and the quality of restaurants and the uniqueness. I mean, I think Denver, or this area, has kind of gotten on the map. And again, I was just going to bring up Frasca is like a top 5 restaurant in the country now. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, so there are a lot of I think there are a lot of eyes on Denver, Boulder, just Colorado from that regard. But also to kind of touch on something that we were discussing earlier, I think it is a little more Colorado-ish, though. It's more accessible. It's more low-key. I mean, the ingredients are great, but it's served in kind of our way. I think there's a really nice spin on that. So, but yeah, what I do is, thank you for saying, I mean, that we believe it to be great quality, but it's very simple, and you know, that's what we do. But yeah, I'm just blown away by all these great new restaurants. Everybody's like, you got to try this, that, and I mean, so yeah, I think, I do believe that Colorado's getting a lot of eyeballs. And just a lot of people are moving here, as I said, to open places. I think that's what it seems like.
The Source has actually been a great place to see that, like to see the people come from all, it's not like there's a neighborhood that supports the Source. So people are coming from everywhere, and they're flying into DIA and driving to the Source because it's a building that, you know, houses a bunch of different concepts that people are excited about coming to see. So that's been, I think, a unique opportunity for me to see firsthand that Colorado in the last 3 years has really changed.
And you're starting to see that more nationally, which is millennials going to cities to make a weekend out of it, and I don't know if that existed like 20 years ago. And there is, you see it in Portland and Austin, and I think with the beer culture and some things happening around culinary in Denver, you're starting to see that, and we've really tapped into that with some more destination audiences from both the metro area, regionally, nationally, where people will go out of their way to experience interesting things and eat and drink the right things.
I think there's something to this notion of, you know, you put your head down, do good work, surround yourself with good people, and just trust that good shit will happen. And it seems like with the three of you, they're all sort of prime examples of that. You know, is that kind of your approach to just getting through tough times a little bit? And I don't know.
I mean, there's still a broad vision. I think I mean, everyone has their own take on it, but it's really idea-based. I mean, you have some big things that you want to accomplish. I think we're always trying to align like social philosophy with do what's right, where there's a need socially, and there's an underlying economic opportunity there. So, you know, I guess there is a little bit of a method to the madness as far as just identifying needs in the market or underserved areas, or that's what's creating the opportunities. You know, for our model, I mean, so there's another model where you basically figure out what everyone else is doing that's working and kind of work according to that, but really just more like taking inventory as far as where there's needs and building and pursuing projects according to that.
I'd like to add something to that. I mean, to me, there's a couple things there. Like, so, yes, there has to be an economic opportunity there, right? So, you know, the business I'm doing, you know, works in certain areas, like, you know, pedestrian, university, urban, but I think you're talking about the values behind it and how you run that business. I mean, so, yeah, I think from my perspective, when you say, yeah, hire good people, treat them well, treat the customer well, I mean, I think that's a very important part of how you run your business. It may not be what, you know, there has to be obviously a need for your business because that only goes so far. So if the model doesn't fit where you do it, you know, it's not going to work. Values do, though, I think if you run your business in that way, I think you have a better success for longevity and for really developing great customers that become friends and employees that really work really hard for you, that are ambassadors for you and whatnot. So when you say, yeah, do it right and treat people, you know, when you talked, the way you put it, you know, it does strike me, and that's, we run our business strictly to values, and we try to be very clear with that to all of our employees, and it's an ongoing struggle, but.
I was going to say, I mean, it's interesting because Kyle actually Kyle and Zeppelin Development actually builds communities. So, I mean, not just building community, but actually builds communities, which gives people like me, has given people like me the opportunity to build, you know, sort of a smaller version of community in each thing. I mean, my mother, I grew up and she always said, we are the company we keep, so keep great company. I've had, you know, the opportunity to not keep great company and be in business at one point in time with somebody that wasn't a great partner, and I lost a good portion of a year of my life and a whole bunch of money. So I think, you know, waking up each day and doing the right thing, keeping great company, definitely makes a difference. And so, yeah.
Let's see if anybody's got any questions. Anybody? Katie's waving one.
Are you still part of Protos or no?
No, Pam bought me out in 2007. We're still great friends, but I don't own Protos anymore.
It's great pizza.
It's still my favorite.
Hey,
Clam pie.
You've got a new business that's 100 beers, whatever. Talking to Pete, next to Illegal Pete down on the mall, you've got a new business going in Hasn't finished out yet. They're taking forever to build it, which is probably good. But it looks like it's going to be strictly, a huge beer, 100 different varieties and all. How's that going to affect you? Because, I mean, we're family, and I really see that, and that looks like a big chain coming in that's going to be next door and competing on part of your turf.
World of Beers you're talking about, and it's taken forever, but I heard yesterday, I think it's going to be 2 months out now. Couple things. First of all, I'm not sure they serve food. So, I mean, we're a pretty accessible restaurant right next door. But again, the question of chain, and I think we look at ourselves, I mean, it's just keep doing what we do and do it as well as we can. I mean, really get to know your customer and really, I mean, we won't have the selection that they have, but do what we can as well as possible. And if people are asking for things, try to put that in, and also be good neighbors, man. I mean, so that's what we do anyway. I mean, so we're going to be very good neighbors with them, and that helps. They'll send people over as well. But I always welcomed competition. I don't see them as direct competition by any means, but we've always tried to play as nice as we can with our neighbors in our competition, just because nothing bad can come from that, and we can always learn lessons. I think you learn lessons being adversarial as well, but I don't think they're as valuable. I don't know if that answers your question, but we actually look forward to it. I mean, I want a vibrant neighborhood too. I'd rather see storefronts full than empty. So,
Question over here.
So speaking of competition, my daughter is a high school cheerleader, which means I hang out at the Denver Coliseum a lot in the fall and winter. And I just wanted to say thank you to the Source, because you've become a source. If I pay the parking guy a couple bucks, I can zip out between competitions, bring all of my cheer mom friends. We can go hang out at Comida and then go back, bring the guy a taco, and resume. And I don't have to eat the food at the Coliseum. So thank you.
Right on.
True story.
That's awesome.
Well,
You're still wondering what a cheer mom is, right?
I have daughters, but they're not at that age. But, one of the most rewarding aspects of the Source is just seeing hipsters and kids and parents and older people, and everybody's deriving a good experience in their own way. And I think, to not try and limit ourselves to one demographic is just kind of a principle to try and maintain with every project. So you are the target audience.
Anybody else before we wrap up? Well, parting shots, panelists, anything?
thank you all for being here. It's exciting. Thank you for having us. Hopefully.
Well, thanks for being here. Really, I think this does come back to community, and from where we started with the community of craft beer and the growth in that industry, and I think to the growth and the community being built around food here in Colorado speaks a lot to who everybody is here. So we encourage you to get out and frequent their locations, and it's nice to get to know your local business person, be it in craft food or some other startup business or your local banker. This has been a great week of leadership spotlight sessions at Denver Startup Week at Basecamp, launched by Chase. Katie Payer in the back has been awesome. She has invited and briefed and prepped all our panelists, and we couldn't do that without Katie and Josh Lomer, who's floating around here in the back too as well. So thanks. Oh, well, thank you.
Good job, Chef.
I just get, I'm also lucky to be surrounded by really good people. So I'm grateful for that and grateful for being a part of Denver Startup Week. And we'll see you here next year. Thanks.